Oh, baby, it is that time again. All right, so we are ranking all Call of Duty pros, all 48 of them, top to bottom, best to worst. Finally, the first stage of the CDL has come to an end, concluding in an insane major tournament here, and we have a ton to talk about today. And of course, we first got to set the ground rules for how we are ranking these players so that it doesn't look too crazy by the time we get to the end of the video. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's go. Alrighty, so this is the template that we're going to be using today. Obviously, pretty straightforward. We're going by 6, 8, 10, 10, 8, 6 with the numbered tiers there and how we're going to try to sort these guys out. There could be some leeway depending on what we want to do with them. And we'll see how it goes. That's basically the only difference from the last tier rankings video from 6 weeks ago. But when it comes to how we're actually grading these players, of course, like I've said in all of my tier rankings videos in the past, it is very difficult to give a perfect picture of all of these guys. There's so many different factors for how it comes into play. But the first basic idea that I kind of come into this with was if I am building a team today, if there was a tournament this week and I needed to build a team, what would a tier list of these players look like if I was trying to build a team this week? Of course, there's a ton of different factors you have to take into account when it comes to the roles they play, their individual skill, their team situation, winning versus the individual skill that they have, and their past successes, the upside that they have as a player, how they've performed recently versus how they've performed in the past, and what can change in the next week or two that could affect how these guys are ranked before we see more Call of Duty in the upcoming few weeks. So there's a lot of different things here. Of course, the meta change is also pretty interesting. I'm not going to try to theorize too much on the meta change in this video, but there are a lot of factors that have to be taken into account when going to this. So now that hopefully we have at least a little bit of a ground rule set for this, let's finally get into it. Let's go. So here we go. It's about to be a marathon. We'll try to get through this as fast as possible. Again, I'm trying to limit how much I talk about each individual player. So with that said, Attach is up first. And I mean, so far, obviously the Minnesota Rokkr have been pretty disappointing. I think there's still a lot of upside with this team as a whole, but Attach, I originally would have thought he could maybe be a top 14, top 15 player this year, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. I'll probably throw him in the B tier for now. He's had moments where he's been very, very good, but it's been pretty inconsistent. Inside of S&D, he's made some pretty massive plays at times, and the Rokkr, of course, very good there, but hardpoint, respawns, they have some real issues. And right now, in my head, Attach is probably near the back of the B tier right now, which is disappointing because I think there's still a lot of upside for him as a player moving forward. So a classic is up next. My initial instinct is, a little bit lower down here, maybe C or D tier. But Paris, of course, has been a big surprise. I think a lot of that attributes like Aqua and Fire for how they've played so far. And there still is a lot of interesting, upside with Paris moving forward, how they could potentially play. I'm a little bit lower on Classic than a lot of people. I'm going to throw him in the D tier for now, which is unfortunate, but we're going to stick with it for now. When you're looking at stats, Classic's kind of sitting in that bottom half of almost every single stat category. And as a whole, when you watch it, just the eye test, he's definitely down there right now. So we'll keep him there for now. CleanX is up next. Another really, really interesting player. And man, I can already tell this is going to be absolutely insane with the type of talent that we have here in the league. In our last tier ranking video, it was so difficult with 48 players to kind of figure out where they're going to go. And it feels like it's going to be even more difficult with how competitive the league has been so far. But as for CleanX, man, there have been so many moments where you're like, oh my word, CleanX is insane. But the inconsistencies are real for Toronto right now. Of course, the big news as of today was that Methods was benched, which we'll talk about here a little bit later. And Insight supposedly is going to be in at this point. I think CleanX probably is deserving of the B tier. He has upside of A tier or higher at points, but that's just not reasonable to put him there for now. But he's a good player. We'll put him in the B for now. Gunless is a really difficult one, man. Seattle's a tough case as a whole, considering how poorly they've played so far. But we know, we always talk about in all these tier rankings videos when Gunless is mentioned, the upside that he has as a player is insane. But right now, inside of Cold War, he hasn't been that impressive. He's probably at the back of the B tier right now or the top of the C tier. I'm going to leave him in the tiebreaker section for now, but he's going to be an interesting one moving forward. Oh, we got the other, Toronto, a dynamic duo here in Cammy. I think I'm going to put him in the B tier as well. He's been very, very good so far. Again, in a lot of moments. But like I said, Toronto has a lot of inconsistencies right now, so I can see the argument for dropping both of them into the C tier potentially. But I really, really like the upside for these two guys, and seeing how they play as a whole will be interesting. So next up, we got Bance as well. So we've got the Toronto guys just kind of lined up here. Not doing a good job of organizing this at all. But Bance, my first instinct is probably the D tier. I mean, his best mode this year has been hardpoint for sure. He's definitely struggled inside of S&D and inside of control. It's not been good by any means. And so Bance is a really interesting case here, and how they'll play potentially with his new roster as well. So I'm going to throw him in the D tier for now. I don't love it. I'm not a huge fan, but we'll leave him there for now. We got Dylan on deck next, and he's, again, one of the most disappointing players so far this year, I think, for me. I'm probably going to have to throw him in the D tier as well, where I have a weird category here where we got 3 Bs and 3 Ds off the rip. But definitely a disappointment so far. I would love to see this London team kick it into gear, but they're in a tough spot right now. And so even if as an individual, Dylan can be insane, which again, we always mention every single time about Dylan in Black Ops 4, but that was, you know, a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point. And we saw a few moments inside of Modern Warfare where we have yet to see it really here, besides one map on Garrison, really, in Black Ops Cold War. So I'm gonna leave Dylan there for now. We got a Sim up next, and he's another very interesting candidate. And, you know, my first instinct is to put him in the A tier. He's been very good. Maybe the most positively great surprise this year so far on the scene. Of course, New York playing very well. The new roster, and I mean, New York, of course, has been the most surprising team as a whole so far. And Sim's been a big part of that, with really just playing extremely well inside of S&D and hardpoint as a whole. He's had some really nice moments in control as well, although a little bit more inconsistent in control. You know, Sim's known for his pace, and so sometimes he gets caught in control and can get put into the mixer for a little bit and really go like pretty big negative. But as a whole, I think Sim is a very interesting player in Cold War, and hopefully he can keep it up moving forward. I'm definitely not completely sold yet, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt right now and have him as a top 14 player right now. Oh, interesting. So we got Tej up next. He's a very tough case. Obviously, we saw his 12-0 in S&D, and we saw him, you know, play very well, especially in S&D on the year so far. Hardpoint and control, the respawn game modes as a whole for Tej have been iffy, to say the least. And so I'm not 100% confident in exactly where to put him right now with the guys that we have in here. I'm gonna put him in the tiebreaker section. I'm thinking B or C tier for Tej, but we'll see here. Fire is up next. He's a very difficult one as well to grade. He's on the fringe of the B and C tier right now. We've seen some very good moments from Fire, and some very inconsistent and iffy moments from Fire as well, like a few of the guys we talked about so far. So my initial instinct is to put him like right at the front of the C tier. You're hovering right around that top 24, like 26, 27th ranked players right now. But again, I was very iffy with Fire, you know, heading into this, and now he's really shown that he's a competent player for sure, with still a lot of untapped potential and a little bit of upside here. So in our next tier rankings video, I think Fire could definitely move up to B. Who knows? Maybe even A. But right now, I'm going to leave him in the C tier. And we got Diamondcon up next as well. We got back-to-back rookies. I'm really organizing this in a weird way. Before New York's final match against Empire, I think I would have put Diamondcon in the B tier. But he had a 0.6 something, 6.6 maybe KD against Empire. And it was not pretty, to say the least. And so I think I'm gonna throw him in the C tier as well. Like, just same thing with Fire, was that, you know, we had him way lower earlier in the previous rankings, and so for them, they're now like solidified in the C tier, and there's still upside for New York moving forward. Obviously, with Hydra back in the United States, I think, and the new meta too as well right now, it's interesting for New York, because I think Diamondcon's probably the one on the chopping block if they wanted to bring Hydra in at some point. But I would imagine they'll stick with their roster for now and see how it plays inside the new meta. Dashy is up next. I mean, and let's be honest, he's been insane so far. The statistics, the slang, control has been crazy. All across the board, though, in S&D hardpoint, he's been fantastic. And statistically, he's top 5 in a lot of the major stats as well, and all of respawn. And in S&D, he's still top 8. He's a very well-rounded player. And of course, OpTic put him in a very good situation to succeed right now with his role. But he's an S tier player, man. I've already dropped him in there. He's insane, a fantastic player, and our first S tier player of the list so far. So, oh my word, we got Huke up next. Speaking of S tier players, I mean, Huke has solidified himself as a top 6 player in Call of Duty right now. He's been absolutely insane for Dallas. Of course, we saw him, that OpTic series highlighted there in the S&D. He dominated, but inside of respawns, he's made clutch play after clutch play. I feel like when I picture raid control, it's always Huke making some sort of insane play, and even inside hardpoint, he's been so good so far. and Huke has been, Dallas's slayer. He's been the guy for him so far, and in a lot of ways, he's taken kind of that highlighted role from Shotzzy. Definitely an S tier player for Huke right now. Shawnee is a really tough case as well, because statistically, Shawnee's been very, very, very good, but London hasn't been winning. My instinct says to put him in the C tier, but something's kind of telling me to drop him down lower. I definitely have been more on the doubting side of Shawnee, and that maybe that's at fault to me so far, but there's a lot of talent right now. I'm gonna put him inside of the tiebreakers tier for now and see where Shawnee ends up. We got Aqua here as well. Very interesting one. I'm gonna throw him in the tiebreaker section for now because he could end up there's a lot of different ways he could end up here, and we'll talk about him later. Accuracy's in a tough spot as well. I feel like I want to put him inside the D tier pretty quickly here. It's been a slow start for accuracy, a slow start for the Rokkr, and it doesn't really feel fair to put him too much higher than that right now. So Illy is the next guy up here, and this is a tough one, man, because, I mean, so far, talk about players who have been disappointing. So far, Illy statistically hasn't been great, all right? He definitely has not been great. So the question is, do you still believe in the talent as a whole for Illy? Like, where's that out with Illy and how that could play out? And I do still believe in the talent. So I know I would imagine this will be pretty controversial to some people, but I really do think that Illy brings a ton of value to Dallas Empire still. Even though statistically he hasn't been great, there's so many important moments that Illy has had inside of Control and certain moments in S&D. Can it improve? Can his gameplay improve? For sure, it definitely can. So I wouldn't have any problem with somebody putting him in the B tier, in that top 20 still inside the B tier. And maybe I could switch it up later, we'll see, but depending on who else ends up where. But I'm going to stick with Illy inside of the top 14 right now. We got Sky, speaking of top 14, he's on the fringe of S and A for sure. He's at the top of the A tier for sure, but I'm going to leave him in the top of the A tier for now. He is a very, very good player. We've seen that for a while now with Skies. He is fantastic. The Mutineers got a few things to figure out still and dial up and tweak, and that's the only reason why I don't have him in the S tier right now, because he has been really, really awesome. There's been a few inconsistencies, but I really think that's going to get ironed out for Skies moving forward. So now we got Silly, and he's another very interesting one. I really liked how he's played with the XM4 so far. These are the types of players where I'm a little bit interested to see like what happens with the new meta now without the XM4 now that's G8. So that is a little bit of a question mark for me as a whole. I think I'm gonna put him in the C tier for now. And I think Silly's a really, really interesting player, and LAG's been an awesome surprise so far. Yeah, we'll leave him in C tier for now. So now we've got Slacked up, and man, you hate to see it, but I think I gotta put Slacked inside the E tier. It's been a tough go for Slack so far on the Mutineers. I would love to see him move up the list because that Mutineers team is really, really fun, but it's definitely been a struggle so far for old Jerry, and not the best case scenario for him without how it's been going in Cold War. So Clay is up next. And it's really tough to rank these guys right now. Clay, as an individual, has been very, very good. And so he's, for me, top 15-ish. He's so close on the fringe of A tier and B tier. He's been very, very good for New York. Man, this gets really tough. And I think this is going to be such a tough conversation with the A and B tiers here. But I'm going to drop him down to the B tier. He's a fantastic player and definitely like surprised in a great way this season. He's been playing very, very well, but I'm going to slot him at the top of the B tier. Up next, we got Slasher. Oh, we got the 3 veterans in a row here again. We got Slasher, we got Clay, Slasher, then Crim back to back to back. It's hard to, you can't put him higher than B tier right now for sure. And, he's on the fringe of B and C. He's right there with some of these guys. I'm going to throw him in the decision category for now. And Crim is up next as well. I think he's solidified definitely inside the B tier as well right now. Crim has been very, very solid for Empire and definitely an important piece for them, of course, in all the ways that he brings value to that team. It's similar with Clayster. Celium is up next. At moments, of course, last year he was basically an S tier player all year long. This year so far, I would slot him definitely inside the top 14. So I'll put him in the A tier. Feeling very, very good about that. He's been very good. The XM4 will be interesting to see as well with him moving forward with how that plays. And I'll be very interested to see where he ends up in the next tier ranking as well with how FaZe is playing. Of course, with how dominant they've been, it's hard not to have all the FaZe players right up here near the top, considering that they are undefeated right now, dropping only 2 maps inside of the whole major itself. Absolutely insane. So Formal is up next, and he's definitely easily inside the A tier as well. It's quickly getting filled up here. Hopefully we don't have too many more guys to go. because Formal has been awesome for OpTic, and he's definitely inside the top 14. Abizi is another guy up here, and my goodness, he is definitely slotted into the top 6, man. The amount of plays that he has made for FaZe this year is unimaginable. Of course, he dominates. You look statistically, you know, he's in the top 5, top 10 in basically every single important stat category. Abizi's been awesome. You look at S&D, you look at control, he has been insane. His first blood percentage inside of S&D is literally mind-blowing, and how often he gets first bloods, how often he wins the first blood battles as well. He's an incredibly insane S&D player, but as well inside hardpoint control, he's been awesome. Obviously a big reason for why FaZe is as good as they are. Speaking of FaZe, Arcitys is up next, and he's definitely been a little bit disappointing so far this season. We all know how good Alec can be as a player. I'm gonna put him in the A tier, probably like near the bottom of the A tier right now, but still a very, very good player, and FaZe could not be this good without what Arcitys brings to the squad and how they play. We got Major Maniac up next. Again, every Rokkr player has been a little bit disappointing so far. I think he's an easy slot into the C tier right now. We definitely need to see a little bit more from him. In S&D specifically, it's been pretty dang disappointing, because usually we've seen Major Maniac dominate inside of the S&Ds, and so far this season that hasn't been the case. It's really been, you know, attach making the big plays, accuracy going on runs or whatever it is. Major Maniac's been kind of just chilling in the background right now. So he really needs to turn up if the Rokkr are to kind of U-turn this thing and, you know, be a top 5 team again in the power rankings, of course, like we talked about in the podcast yesterday. So now we got Scraps. I think he's kind of on the fringe here of C tier. And I think I'm just going to slot him right into the C tier. I feel pretty good about that. Paris, again, pleasant surprise for Paris so far this season. And Scraps has been playing pretty dang well. In control, he's been very good. S&D's been very solid as well. The question mark is hardpoint for Scraps right now, and I'm sure he'll figure that out. If he figures that thing out and starts, you know, really dominating inside of hardpoint, he could fly up these rankings. Top of the B tier easily if he can figure out hardpoint. Simp, I mean, if you watch the podcast, if you watch my breakdown video, I think Simp is the best player in the game right now. Straightforward. It's as simple as that. I mean, Huke has been very good. Abizi's very good. Dashy's very good. Some of the other guys are very good. But the guy who's consistently been the difference is Simp. In every single game mode, he is dominating. And statistically, of course, you can look at stats. When it comes to damage, kills per round, first bloods, anything along those lines, he is very good in all of those categories. Of course, KD as well in all 3 game modes. Simp is insane and brings so much value on the map constantly. He is the best player in the game, in my opinion, and absolutely an incredible Call of Duty player. Kenny is very difficult to rank as well. He's also on the fringe of C and B tier, so I'm going to throw him in the tiebreakers as well. Man, now we got Priesta up next, and this is tough, man, because he's been just extremely disappointing. Probably the most disappointing player in the CDL this whole year so far, because I really thought Priesta could absolutely dominate. I'm going to throw him inside the C tier for now. And we know the upside that Priesta has as a player. We saw it in BO4. We saw it, of course, at points last year with how good he can be. But right now, it's just not clicking for him, or again, for the Rokkr as a whole, especially inside, like I said, inside hardpoints. And Priesta has been a big reason for that. He's just not playing very good COD right now for what we know he can do. And I would love to see Priesta hovering back up towards that A tier here sooner than later. We got Envoy up next, and he is right here. We already got 4 players inside the S tier. Man, I mean, I feel pretty good about Envoy being inside of that top 6. He's right on the edge. I think he might be the 6th player in my head. He's probably 6th right now. I gotta give him the benefit of the doubt and throw Envoy inside of the top 6. Then we got Temp. And man, these guys, it is so difficult to grade these guys, boys. It is not easy, man. My word. He is right on the fringe. I'm going to have a big old tiebreaker conversation at the end here. Then we got Vivid, and not easy as well. I'm going to throw Vivid probably into the D tier. Again, there's moments where Vivid looks really good, but it's just so inconsistent. And it's definitely been a struggle. Pristini is a tough conversation to have as well, man. Seattle is just extremely disappointing, and I really want to see Pristini succeed, man. I love Pristini. I think he's a great player, and he's been a great player in his career, but for now, I think I've got to throw him in the E tier, man. It hurts for me to say that. And we always talk about that pace conversation with Pristini, but there's something up with how he plays with Looney, with how he plays with Gunless on the map, and there's some sort of communication error there especially inside of control, and we've seen that with Pristini. Like, statistically, he has the lowest KD in control and hardpoint right now, although control Zed technically has the lowest because he played one map this weekend, but definitely tough stuff for Pristini so far. I really hope he starts climbing the rankings here in the next few weeks or few months. Awakening is up next, and I mean, this is who I was talking about. You gotta slot Awakening inside the top 6. He has been unreal so far, especially in Search and Destroy, where his first blood percentage is outrageous. His first blood win percentage is outrageous. And it'll be very interesting to see how he deals with not being able to use the XM4, considering he's been so dominant with the XM4 in his hand. But I think he'll be just fine moving forward. And I would imagine Awakening will be a top, 10 player all year long moving forward. Oh, Apathy's interesting. So he's up next, and he's right here on the D and C tier, but it's tough to kind of like judge, I mean, we've seen moments this year where Apathy's dying. He's gone the donk mode, the dad app mode, and looked really freaking good. Like, specifically, he had that insane streak on Crossroads, and he's had some really nice 3-pieces. He had that one against, was it against FaZe, where he 3-pieced on Moscow, and he's had some really cool moments this year. But it's just, again, so inconsistent for Apathy and for how that LAG team is playing. I'm leaning C tier. Actually, I'm going to commit to him being in the C tier. He's right there in the middle of the C tier probably right now, but I would love to see him in the B tier here moving forward, and he's one of my favorite players in the CDL. Definitely a big app fan. And Shotzzy is up next, man. Again, our S tier is filled, man, which is tough because we know how good Shotzzy can be. Like, if I had a 7, he might be right there. He's right up there with the best of them. And, I don't want this to discount Shotzzy because he is an incredible player. Although this year right now, instead of S&D, there's been, he's had some like patience issues. A lot more than last year. Maybe it just wasn't as evident last year because we were playing 5v5, so you could throw your body, towards a bomb site and it could work out a little bit more, last year in the past. There's a world where he easily ends up back inside the top 6 here moving forward. But for now, I think he's just right at the top of the A tier. He's just an incredibly dang good player. Now we got Looney up next. This is a tough conversation as well. He's either in the D or E tier, just straightforward, I mean, that's just gotta be where he is right now. I'm gonna throw him in the tiebreakers for now. We got Assault in here as well. Man, the LAG guys are so tough to rank right now. I'm just gonna put him in the tiebreaker section for now as well. Then we got Scump. Again, not a great start for Scump so far, but I do believe in Scump. He's right on the fringe of top 15. So he would either be at the top of the B tier or the bottom of the A tier. He's right in that probably 12 to 15 range, I think, right now. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. You kind of got to give Scump that he's deserved the benefit of the doubt right now. So I'll throw him in the A tier. Man, Neptune is really fun to grade as well, man. He's, okay, I'm going to throw him in the tie. We got a lengthy tiebreaker section. Octane is here as well. Oh my word. This is so difficult, because I really want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But how many? We got 2, 4, 6, 8 right now in the A tier, man. That's so tough. Okay, tiebreaker right now. Mac, interesting as well. Let's throw Mac inside of the C tier. I feel pretty good about that. Then we got Insight. Okay, we're going to throw Insight in the E tier for now, considering he's one of the new players on the block. We got Jerd. He's going to go inside the E tier for now as well. Oh, and we got Parasite. So we got all 3 of those E tier players at the end. We got 5 E tier players right now, rocking those guys there. And so the question mark is, how do we deal with all of these guys right here? These are some very tough conversations to have. So to round out this video, Octane, man. Wow. Can I break my own rules? Can I break my own rules and throw a 9th player inside of the A tier? Because it feels wrong to have Octane inside of the B tier. I know he hasn't been like the top 6 Octane that we've been used to seeing the past 2 years, but he's still been very, very solid. And I know that statistically, I mean, let's see where he is right now. He's 7th inside of hardpoint stats. He is, let's look at S&D. He has the 7th best KD inside of hardpoint. He's been very good overall in damage per death as well. He's been, very solid in those situations. S&D wise, he's been okay. He's been average, looking like he's middle of the tier somewhere around here. He's 14th in KD. He looks like he's hovering in around that side, that top 15 as well in kills per 9 rounds. First blood win percentage is very solid as well. So, I mean, I just think Octane, let's look at control real quick. Probably not as good for Octane in control, I would imagine. Yeah, he's 29th in control right now. So he's definitely hovering, you know, in this B-A tier somewhere. The question mark is, do any of these guys have an obvious case above him? Crim has an argument. I think Slasher would have an argument as well. Clay would have an argument as well. That's really, really tough. So, man, I'm going to leave him inside the B tier for now, and we'll go from there. So we need 2, 4, 6. We need 4 more guys in the B tier, and then 3 guys have to get bumped down to the C tier. Then we're going to have to bump at least 1 guy down to the D tier. So there's a lot of tough conversations to have here real quick. Slasher, I think, is locked in inside the B tier. Aqua is really, really interesting because he has put up stats for sure for Paris. So the question mark is, do I believe in him in the long term? That's a tough conversation to have. Tej is tough as well. I think there's been enough inconsistencies with Neptune where I'm going to throw him down into the C tier. I know at moments he's looked very, very good, and he has a ton of upside. And this is why the top 48 conversation, when you only have 48 pros on 12 teams, 4v4, there is so much talent in the Call of Duty League right now that, you know, C tier is so much different meaning than what C tier was last year in Modern Warfare. And a few of these guys are going to be inside the C tier as well. So DiamondCon, I think, deserves very much to be inside of the top 24. So that's honestly a pretty interesting conversation, and one that I'm pretty tempted by right now, to be honest, to move 2 of the 100T guys down and DiamondCon up. I think he's been the most impressive rookie so far. Fire's been very, very good and definitely shown a lot, and I've been very impressed with them as a whole. But DiamondCon, I think, has probably been the flashiest so far. Okay, I'm spinning my wheels here. I'm going to knock Temp down to C tier. I'm just gonna throw him right here. We're gonna knock Temp down to C tier. You know, the question mark for me is, like, is Tej really that much of a difference maker? He has in S&D, he has a top 5 KD right now. Again, KD does not mean everything. I've talked about this all the time. It's very, very kind of meaningless in a lot of ways. But there is some insight there, especially in Search and Destroy, with, like, you know, staying alive and playing your life, and that does matter inside of S&D for sure. And you see his first blood percentage is definitely below par, which isn't ideal. And his first blood win percentage is right there as well. So he has a pretty good first bloods per 9 rounds percentage as well. So that's pretty good. But inside of control and hardpoint, he's definitely not been great. So that's the question mark for me versus Kenny, who kind of overall has been like hovering around like 20 or so inside of stats. I'm locking in Aqua inside the top 24 right now. Then the question mark is Gunless, Tej, and Kenny. We need to get 2, 4, 6, 8. We need to pick up 2 of those 3, or pull up 2 of the rookies and send both of them down. Alrighty, I'm sending Gunless down for sure to the C tier, which definitely sucks. He's been underwhelming so far this year. We know the upside. Like I always say, he could easily end up higher. That's what makes the conversation really, really difficult, and kind of why I really like doing the numbered tiers like this. Because if I didn't force myself to number them, I would just put all of them inside the B tier and kind of take the easy way out and not choose sides. You know what? I'm going to take a stance here. I'm going to say DiamondCon has been the best of the rookies, and I'm going to throw him just slightly at the bottom of the B tier, whereas the rookies are probably at the top of the C tier. And I'm going to move Kenny down to the C tier, which really hurts me because I love Kenny. Definitely one of my favorite players in the league as well. And so to have him in the C tier definitely sucks. So now we're down to our final conversation here. We need to choose the last few guys to knock down to the D tier. We need one more guy in the E tier. I think I'm going to throw Looney down there. And now we just need to get the final guys knocked out here. Shawnee v Assault. We could move both of them down and we would still need one more. So I'm actually going to move both of them down to the D tier. Again, main ARs are just a little bit easier to kind of like nerf and throw down the list a little bit. And so maybe it's a cop-out answer to throw the main ARs down there. And then we need to choose one player to throw down here still. 2, 4, 6, 7. Oh, come on, man. I don't think any of these players deserve to go down. Nah, bro. Screw that. I'm breaking my rules. We're leaving all of these guys inside of the C tier. So we're going to have 11 players inside the C tier. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So if anyone comments about that, we'll know that they didn't watch this part of the video. So, but overall, man, I think this is where we're at with it. It definitely is tough. with a lot of those conversations are not easy, but I feel good about the top 6. I feel pretty good about the top, 14, and I feel really, really good overall about the top 24, especially like the top 15 or so. I'm very, very confident. It gets very difficult still because we haven't seen, even though we've seen a decent amount of CoD, there's still a lot more CoD to play. And with the meta change incoming, there's so many things that could still change. I still want to see a lot more from these rookie players and a lot more from the Minnesota Rokkr as well. 100T, there's still a lot of things to sort out there as well. And with Ultra, another new roster change with Insight in there, I decided to throw Insight inside the E tier. So there are a lot of really interesting conversations to be had. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, check out the podcast. We did power rankings of all the teams. It was a really, really good episode, a nice conversation. So if you're looking for something else to listen to at work tomorrow or right now, or you're listening to this one, check it out. I did a summary of the whole event, which is also a very different conversation to what we had here. And I think you guys would enjoy that. But follow me on Twitter as well. All the plugs here at the end. And also a little charity shout out to Draft Buff, because Draft Buff has been really good to us. And so shout out Draft Buff, and go check them out. You can join our community draft royale. Shout out Draft Buff. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, like, comment, subscribe, share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy, FaZe Elite. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.